Good morning from Guam. I haven't done a live in a long time, and I'm thrilled to be here live again, and I will share it widely. um, the last 2 weeks, we've been doing online physical storytelling workshops. Steve and I have been doing that, and they have been incredibly rich and deep. And one reason is that we move stories and we move metaphors, and sometimes a metaphor is so rich and deep and can just hold so much more than just say one word or anyway, those of you who understand play with metaphors know that um, there's so much that can happen with a metaphor. So the one that really came up was about lock and key, and some of the members said unlocking freedom and I am the locksmith, which are beautiful words to uncovering um, ways in yourself where you address challenges you face or challenges you didn't think had some kind of options or solutions. That's often what happens is we get stuck sometimes in our languages or thinking about it, and we can't solve the problem on that level because just thinking and overthinking about it doesn't often give us inspired action. So that's why movement is such a great place to go to in this. So I'm just going to throw out a few little questions of playing with this. So, what happens in your body when I speak of locks? They can be as simple as feeling locked in your shoulder, you know. Sometimes it's as literal as the locked shoulder. What about, are you the key? Can you feel yourself as a key who can open things, who can create possibility? So, or do you sometimes feel that the key and the lock don't quite fit, or a stuckness, or is there a smoothness in that? So, I'm just going to back away a little bit and just start to move with those ideas and see what starts to happen for me. So, as I come into movement and as I warm up the body, in some ways it is feeling for me into where am I feeling locked in the body? What part of my body needs a little bit of energy and attention just right now? So, one way of starting to move fluid energy in your body is to start to go into a little bit of spinal movement. I'm going to stand up. So you might find yourself moving, just finding ways that the spine moves, because the spine speaks to the rest of the body. And I recently was listening to a woman who wrote the book about the psoas muscle, Liz Cook, speak about the spine as a river, that she wanted to change the language, not call it a spinal column. And we certainly got away from calling it an even more rigid language. So languaging can also be a lock, right? So if we play with the spine to just move some energy into the body, that can begin to move. If we're moving into the sacrum and the lower spine, you can feel the hips beginning to move, which of course that connects into the legs. So Where are you feeling it? Is there a place in you that, in spite starting to get the movement flowing, feels that lockedness? Hey, there's the Loch Ness monster, right? Anyway, so beginning to feel that. Oh, and it's funny, my niece just had a baby today, or actually yesterday. I mean it was today, but it's the 18th in Germany. She had a boy named Lachlan. So there we go. It's all related to this word lock, but of course that's spelled L-O-C-H as opposed to L-O-C-K in American English or other English. Anyway, so as we move the spine, you just might notice we'll start a bit literal. Those of you who know me, I like to be a little more abstract, but sometimes the literalness is exactly where it's at. So I'm not putting any kind of judgments. So is there a place that might feel a bit locked in the body? And if so, what's going to give you a little bit more movement, a little bit more fluid in that place? So is it moving perhaps the opposite of that area, just to remind that area that it can move? So say, I don't know, I'm just going back to my left wrist, the one that I broke 2 years ago, and I'm still, trying to get as much range back as I can. So I might start to move, in my right arm a little bit to try to feed into my left wrist. So I might just go back and forth between that. So maybe you have a place, and maybe it's more centrally located. Maybe there's a place in your spine that feels a little bit locked. So then I would just recommend just a little small wave. And often Steve and I would do a contact improvisation experience about creating a wave in the body. And so the way you'd see it's kind of like the heel rock in the Bartenieff work. When you do the heel rock, you start to see, well, where is it a little bit locked up? And so this little wave also helps us see where it might be locked up. You might have tight ankles. You might be tight in the hips or in the thigh sockets, or somewhere there. It might be in the thoracic and the middle spine. So that little just wave can help start to unlock the spine. So I'm going to just start to shift a little bit, and you need to trust your body about where it goes. So when I start to use the words lock and key, what kind of movement starts to emerge for you? Is there an area of your life, so it is a little bit more of that feels a little bit locked? Or do you have the key to that area? Or maybe you have no idea what the shape of the key that is going to fit into that lock. So, you can take your body into different shapes. Does that feel like the lock? Or does that feel like the key? And we know that in the literalness, there's all kinds of different locks, right? All kinds of, there's padlocks that have a little key in them. There's locks that have combinations. There's locks that are just like in the door, and you put the key in, or your car, to start the car lock, you have to have a key to do that. So as you're starting to move a little bit more and create a little more energy, what kind of lock are you noticing in your body? Are you feeling like you're like a car and need to get your engine moving? You know, I've always been a little bit anti thinking about the body like a car or like a vehicle. But I mean, you know, unfortunately, that's a huge metaphor for us right now. Like, we're not flying these days, right? Or not very much anyway. So, is it, so if we, what, you know, imagine what kind of lock, and there's so many, you know, beautiful old doors that have those beautiful shapely locks with those beautiful old keys. I'm going to show you a picture at the end of a card that I rediscovered in a drawer that I thought seemed to have some meaning for me this year, and right now it's giving me even more meaning and more depth. So as you move around, are you feeling like the lock, or are you feeling like the key? Or are you feeling a little bit of both? In what area in your life, if you're a mama and you've been considering going back to work, think about, how do I want to unlock my work life? What's the key for me in unlocking going back to work? Do I need to regain a bit of confidence in my skills? Do I need to talk to other mothers who've done it? Just find out what models are out there. So each of you will have your own experience. So now that I find myself moving with this sort of arm and hand gesture, it feels like I'm sort of offering up a keyhole. It has some movement to it. So I'm finding that for myself. And I'm also finding that as a little bit of a guide, a little bit of a guidepost. And so that would be like a lock, a key, following the key. Does this key fit? And it could be taking it into your own intuition. When we think about keys on the piano and music, sometimes we think, is that key in tune? So are we in tune to listening to the keys that open the locks of our life? So this is just a little brief exploration, and I'm going to start to bring it to a little bit of a close. You, of course, can go further in your exploration. This is just, you know, a little brief opening, and just something that's been interesting me and that I've been interested in exploring more deeply. And so as I just finish off with a little bit of self-touch, bringing that, feeling that kind of pour into my skin a little bit. My own exploration really move in through my skin. And most of you know that the skin is a huge sensory layer because it covers our whole body. And anyway, I have this really sweet little card that, yeah, show it to the, yeah, I can bring it up. I just found this so interesting. I thought, well, there's some key and there's probably some lock that I don't even know exists right now. And this seems to be a little theme for me this year. So, thank you for joining me or watching this later. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment on the video or send me a personal message. Have a beautiful day, night, sleep, wherever you are in the world.